Hey guys, what's up? Welcome back here to today's episode of Intuitive Angling. And man, I really appreciate you guys swinging by the channel and spending some of your day with me to check the video out. Always grateful to have you guys around here. And today, guys, about 2 or 3 times a year, I like to go over what I consider are the best YouTube channels to watch, the best bass fishing YouTube channels. And I've got another list put together here for the mid part of 2025. I've got what I consider personally the top 5 bass fishing YouTube channels you can watch, and I've got 5 honorable mentions as well. And then I'm also going to talk a little bit about some of the worst bass fishing YouTube channels you can watch. So we're going to dig into that in today's episode. Also, guys, before we get started, a couple quick housekeeping tips that you guys, favorite part of your video to hear about my housekeeping plugs. Just wanted to thank everybody that's taken time to support Intuitive Angling, guys. If you're using and bookmarking like my tackle warehouse link, I put in every video description to buy your tackle, subscribing to the channel, using all those links, becoming a channel member. Thank you very much for me and my family. We really appreciate that support because that's the reason this channel's on YouTube. So much appreciated there. Okay, guys, the list I compiled here, I sort of did a combination. There's 2 different types of bass fishing YouTube channels, in my opinion. You have your hardcore educational technique channels, and then you got some commentary channels. And I think that there's a very big that there's an important place for both of these in the bass fishing YouTube genre, because I think personally the commentary channels are some of the best channels out there, because it gives you a pulse about what's going on in the sport of bass fishing from an independent media point of view. It's like you can't believe anything that you hear from the tournament organizations or some of the larger corporate media organizations, but the independent media that comes from YouTube channels gives you a dose of reality. So I really like those commentary channels. And of course, we all want to learn to become better anglers. Some of them do both. Some of them focus on one or the other. So we're going to get into that. Then I'm going to talk a little bit about the YouTube channels I don't like. Okay, first of all, I want to run through the honorable mentions. I listed the top 5, and I've got 5 honorable mentions. Now, these are all good channels, every one of them. In fact, some of them have been on my top 5 list before. But the 5 honorable mentions I got in there are Richard Jean, the Fishing Machine. You guys probably seen Richard. He's just old school guys, just real simple, hardcore, good bass angler, crappie angler, catfish. If you guys like just to see fishing in general and some down to earth tips, Richard Jean's great. Next one on honorable mention is Oliver Nye and his Riley Kolich. They have Big Bass Dreams. The guys, that couple, Riley and Oliver, they're all over the country fishing. Oliver's excuse me, guys, frog in my throat. Oliver's all over the country, focusing on some of the best big bass fisheries in the country. So if you guys want to see some big fish caught, Big Bass Streams is good. Next 2 are 2 my favorite podcasts. That's Zal Dangerous and Dave Mercer. Both of those guys, without a doubt, they have the best podcast in the country for sure. I love Zal Dangerous, Trait and Chris, guys. They give you a dose of reality every time. Definitely check them out. And the last one on my honorable mention is Old School Bass Fishing with Dale Verts. Dale lives up at Lake of the Ozarks. Old school bass fisherman just like me. He's super refreshing, guys. He's super entertaining. That's my 5 honorable mentions. Okay, so let's get into the top 5, and then we'll get into some of the worst. And I've listed these 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, but depending upon the content, that can get switched around. But coming in at number 5 is aspiring tournament angler Chris Johnson. Chris is a bass angler out of, I think he's around Beaver Lake down there. I think he lives somewhere around Beaver Lake. I love Chris Johnson's channel, guys. He still uses an old school flasher on his boat, and he won a Bassmaster Open, I think, a year or 2 ago. Just a super knowledgeable, old school bass fisherman, historian of the sport, appreciates the old ways, just a hammer for traditional bass fishing. And he is like, when you watch this channel, it's like going back in time a little bit. So refreshing. It's such a reset that we need in today's high-tech world of bass fishing. So definitely check out aspiring tournament angler Chris Johnson. The next one is Cerebral Tackle. Cerebral Tackle is a controversial channel. It's a commentary only channel. And CT, who runs the thing there, he ruffles some feathers once in a while. but I really enjoy listening to his commentary because he's like an investigative bass fishing YouTube podcaster. Does a really good job about it. He's thorough in his research. He's thorough in his information. He does his due diligence, and he gives everybody a much needed dose of reality. If you've never seen it, Cerebral Tackle, he doesn't put out a lot of videos, but when he does, really, really good videos. Okay, the next one, guys, these next two, those two that I just talked about there, they're, Chris and CT both sort of commentary, but the next one, hardcore fishing tips, regulars on the top 5 list because you can't deny it. 2 of the best YouTube channels out there. Number three and number 2, and they're very close to the same, are Fish the Moment, Johnny Schultz. You guys know I've known Johnny forever, do my lake map breakdowns with it, and Matt Steffen Fishing. These are probably the 2 most informational, educational channels on YouTube, period. Johnny does a great job producing the videos for Fish the Moment. He does a lot of in-depth offshore electronic work, not just with live scope, but Johnny is an expert at 2-dimensional sonar, any type of electronics. And the thing I like about Fish the Moment is he always brings it back to simplicity. He lets people know that you can fish offshore and you can become a good offshore angler, and you don't have to have all this high-tech stuff. Johnny could do the same stuff he's talking about here with a flasher. I mean, I've seen him personally do it with a two-dimensional sonar. And from somebody that has a knowledge of fishing that like I have over the years and years, when I see Johnny Schultz break down a lake, offshore structures, and try to decipher what he says just on 2-dimensional sonar, which is what I use, super, super impressive, guys. So if you want to learn about offshore techniques and bass fishing and some of the more high-level information, Fish the Moment, Johnny Schultz is going to be the deal. Okay, number 2, Matt Steffen Fishing, guys. Matt's a fellow Bridgeford Pro Team member here. A lot of you guys think this is going to seem biased, but these guys, prove me wrong. Watch both of these channels and then tell me if you don't think they're 2 of the most educational channels out there. Matt Steffen is a world-class tournament angler. He's had a stellar career. He's a great teaching YouTuber out there. He gives hardcore techniques about everything, colors, baits, rigging, patterns, all this type of stuff. It's a diverse YouTube channel on technique. So if you guys really want to kick up your technique to the next level, you got to watch Matt Steffen Fishing and Fish the Moment. Those are absolutely the 2 best out there. Okay, now the number 1 channel on my list, favorite channel, I think the number 1 bass fishing YouTube channel is Steve Chapman's Get Your Fish On. Steve, it's an opinion channel, pretty much like CT, and he puts out pretty much daily videos. He's on top of everything in the bass fishing industry, guys. If there's any type of news that you want to learn about in bass fishing, if you want to find out what's going on, behind the scenes, in front of the scenes, whatever, check it out. Get Your Fish On with Steve Chapman. Steve does a great job at presenting his information. He's very articulate. He's very, thoughtful. He doesn't, go off the cuff. I mean, he's very, very analytical, and he's very, very fair. He usually presents both sides of the story. And it's become probably my favorite YouTube channel to watch. So again, top 5, aspiring tournament angler Chris Johnson, Cerebral Tackle, Fish the Moment, Matt Steffen Fishing, and Get Your Fish On. Okay, now let's talk about the YouTube channels that you do not want to waste your time on here, because there's a lot of them out there with that. Let me give you guys a little dose of reality with this bass fishing YouTube stuff out there. There is a sort of an oversaturation of bass fishing YouTubers out there because everybody wants to jump on the bandwagon about making money off of YouTube. I get it, and if you know something about fishing, you want to try to put a channel out there. Guys, there is a ton of bass fishing YouTube channels out there that are copycats, what I call them. And they do it very subtly and very sneaky, because what they do is, and if you have a trained eye can see this in a second. But there is a lot of channels out there. There's a lot of bass fishing YouTubers that they will go around some of the most popular bass fishing YouTube channels out there, and they will look at the most popular videos that those people create or do, and then they will copy that. but the copy, and some of it is obvious, some of it is not so obvious, but to the trained eye, I know exactly what they're doing. So you got to keep an eye out and be aware for those bass anglers, for those YouTube channels out there that make it sound like they know more than what they know about technique and fishing. And a good way to point this out, guys, is if you have a bass fishing YouTuber out there that doesn't have a lot of experience, doesn't have a lot of tournament notoriety, is fairly young, that may not be super young, but maybe under 30 years old or something like that, or under 35, those are the type of channels that usually have that. Those are the guys that they know just enough to talk about bass fishing, but they don't really understand and know exactly what they're trying to convey. They're just trying to convey somebody else's ideas or somebody else's creativity. So there's a lot of them out there like that. So, definitely try to avoid those type of channels. And a lot of it just depends on what you want. I mean, when the bass fishing YouTube genre, because one of the things that I always like to refer to is every single bass angler that watches YouTube videos, we're all at a different stage of our development in our bass fishing, journey down the roads. I equate it to building a brick house. Everybody has to start with their first brick. They got to know how to rig a plastic worm. They got to know what a Texas rig is. They have to know how to tie a knot. That's your first brick, and there's a place for that on YouTube. And then other anglers are highly skilled tournament anglers that are putting their final brick on the house, and everybody else is in between. We're all at different levels in our journey on this bass fishing road that we're on. So there's a place for a lot of different, levels of information on bass fishing YouTube. But anyway, guys, that's just, my opinion of it out there. Like I said, be wary of those copycat type anglers out there. There's a lot of them out there. And if you stay with the YouTubers out there, a lot of them that have tournament experience are the ones that I put a lot of credibility. I'll use my buddy Johnny Schultz with Fish the Moment. Johnny had an extensive youth fishing career in tournaments, and he's applied that to his YouTube channel. So he has a lot of experience just, from fishing from 8 years old to 18 years old in the youth tournaments. Some people have national tournament experience. Some people have regional or local. But I think that the best informational bass fishing channels out there are people that have had successful tournament careers. Not to say that you have to, but guys, by far, that's where you're going to get the best information, because when you watch a YouTube channel from a former tournament angler, they're drawing upon their own personal experience. And if you don't have a big tournament background and a lot of years behind you in tournament fishing, you don't have the diversity of experience to be able to share on YouTube that the tournament anglers have. And then the commentary people, they don't really have to have much experience in bass fishing at all, other than being fans and historians of the sport. But that's what I enjoy, guys. And I'll tell you one thing from my own channel here, that's what people like. People like opinion videos on bass fishing, and because it's simply more interesting, and the fact that there's so much accessibility to technique information on YouTube that I think people are a little bit burned out on it, but people never get burned out on commentary about current events and current issues. So one thing I'll leave you with, guys, on this commentary thing, whether it be on my channel or, Get Your Fish On or whatever, or Zal Dangerous or anything out there, when you watch a commentary channel, people, if you have an opinion, there's always going to be somebody that doesn't agree with that. And there's always going to be critics to that opinion. If you watch a YouTube channel that's a commentary, remember if you're going to comment on it, focus on the message and do not attack the messenger. If you're one of those guys out there that attacks a YouTuber for expressing an opinion, that's a very weak position as a human. If you don't agree with that, if somebody says something you don't agree, let's hear your intelligent, critical thinking rebuttal to the topic. Don't bring it down to the primal base, low intelligence level of attacking the messenger or the person putting it out there. Keep it civil, keep it smart, keep it intelligent, and that's the way that you have a respectful dialogue in the YouTube genre there. So anyway, guys, let me know what y'all think about it. We'll talk later.